Welcome to the 10-Minute Mind Shift Podcast. I'm your host, Janet Cagle, certified life coach, weight loss coach, and lover of all things related to upleveling my life and yours. My goal is to help you get one step closer to your goal, whatever it is. My goal is not to keep you wrapped up in self-help all day, just 10 minutes. And who doesn't have 10 minutes, right? Welcome back, my friend. This is episode number 109. Intentional pressure. I could not be more excited about this episode. And it's been a minute, so thanks for coming back. Before I dive in, I thought I would give you a quick Kegel update. It feels like we have been doing so much living lately. So we have welcomed a new grandbaby in February, and Steve spent a week in Breckenridge on the ski slopes with a really good friend of his in March. And Dutch and I did a Western dressage show at the World Equestrian Center the first part of April, and I don't mind saying he blew my mind. We rode all the new tests for the first time, and we got great scores, and that's always fun. But he had to really focus and overcome some things that he normally doesn't have to deal with and that normally would work against him. There was a lot of commotion going on in the stands that are normally vacant. Traditionally, no one is allowed in the stands where the dressage tests are being ridden. But we had people running up and down the bleachers, opening Dorito bags, which sounds like an invitation to eat to a horse. He handled it. He handled all of the pressure beautifully. One of my favorite things about Dutch is how well he does handle pressure. He never blows up. He never makes it mean he's doing it wrong. Kind of goes with it. So the week after the show, we got to spend a long weekend in DC with grandkids and got the best DC tour ever thanks to Brinley and Tiggy, our two granddaughters. Tate was busy with Dad, but he entertained us in the evening with the best stories over dinner. We really had good quality family time, and I just have to say, Britt and Sean, I know it's not easy, but you guys are raising some fine humans. So that's what's been going on with us. Now let's dive into episode 109, Intentional Pressure. As humans, in general, we have an adversarial relationship with the feeling of pressure. It feels a little negative if we just sit and think about it. Try it and see what comes up for you. I mean, I don't think anyone sits and thinks about pressure and feels like, oh, that's exactly what I need in my life right now. That's really going to get me going. In fact, when we feel pressure, we can start feeling self-doubt creep in. Often, as we are creating a life by design, when we start to do something that we've never done before, we start to feel uncomfortable, and it feels like pressure, and it's enough to make us back off or slow down or even maybe go a different direction in an effort to avoid the feeling of pressure. I cannot even count how many times I delayed reading an email because of the feeling of heaviness of pressure just from reading the subject line. Every time I'm about a week out from a horse show, and especially if I'm writing new tests, I feel the pressure of the competition and I start feeling self-doubt, and I even start regretting signing up for the show to begin with. That, my friends, is why sometimes this chasing our dream thing is so hard, and that's why we are going to talk about it today. What I have noticed with me and what I see with a lot of my students is the belief that pressure indicates that something has gone wrong, or that we're doing it wrong, or that it's the wrong goal. I already mentioned this, but one of my favorite things about Dutch, and it's what my trainer notices, and she says it over and over and over again, but it's how well he handles pressure. Never blows up, never makes it mean he's doing it wrong. He just kind of goes with it. So let me say this up front. It is human nature to try and create different circumstances in order to feel less pressure. But it's because we have this idea that everything should be easier. I do the same thing. I say it all the time to my trainer. Why does this have to be so hard? And she always says, because it is. What I'm really asking her is, why is the pressure so uncomfortable? And the answer is the same, because it is. But that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. We start to think the amount of pressure is what we need to manage because it feels so uncomfortable. But here is the good stuff. What if the feeling of pressure was a good thing? What if we totally changed the way we think and feel about pressure in every area of our life instead of trying to avoid it? I mean, if what we resist persists, then pressure is no different. In fact, we can actually become pressure intolerant if we spend our lives trying to avoid the feeling of pressure. I want to offer that pressure is part of the human experience. When you decide to live a life by design and you're going to do things that you've never done before, I want to offer the idea that pressure is a natural experience in taking that on. And it's not a negative experience. It's a natural experience. And what if pressure wasn't something to be solved? What if nothing has gone wrong? And what if instead of spending time and energy trying to relieve or fix pressure, the thing that you do instead is create a better relationship with it? What if you allowed it? So what if when pressure appears, instead of you thinking that you took a wrong turn or thinking instead that you're on the wrong track, why not think instead, this is exactly what I signed up for. This is the experience that I signed up for. This is part of that experience. We have to stop thinking that what we've signed up for is only the experience of the actual achievement of the goal, whatever the goal is, without experiencing the pressure on the journey. What if we had the thought that we have signed up for this experience of pressure, and as we work through the process of evolving to the next level, whatever we're trying to create, we start feeling the relief of the pressure because we are growing into the person who can now create the result. Hopefully that just made sense. What would be different for you if you thought that were true? What would change if instead of looking for a way out and relief from the pressure, you leaned in to the pressure and started going with the pressure? Changing your relationship with pressure could truly be a game changer. Being pressure intolerant has you giving up too soon, throwing in the towel, or not putting yourself out there to begin with. It keeps you from living your best life, a life by design. Being pressure intolerant will have you saying, wasn't meant for me, when the truth is, everything you desire is meant for you, but it will require that you work on your relationship with pressure. So how do you do that? Great question. Number 1, be willing to feel it. Allow it without trying to resist it or avoid it. The feeling of pressure gets a seat in the car as a passenger, not the driver's seat by any means, but a legit welcome passenger. Number 2, create different thoughts about your ability to handle pressure. I want to give you a couple of examples of how pressure works for us. Think of your car tires. Pressure from air is what keeps us rolling down the road comfortably and safely and creates longevity in the tires. It's a good thing. We intentionally keep our tires aired up to a certain amount of pressure for that experience. If we applied our notion of pressure as being a bad thing to our tires, we would have a totally different experience with our cars. Think of the pressure in an airplane cabin. We intentionally keep that cabin pressurized at a level that allows us to breathe comfortably. Without the appropriate amount of pressure, we would die. Pressure is all around us, and it's made our lives much more comfortable. When I started thinking about this topic and getting ready to record this episode, I thought of something my husband does anytime he is wanting to up-level his running game. He signs up for a 5K. He applies intentional pressure. Without the pressure of the upcoming 5K, he maintains a certain training level. But as soon as that extra layer of pressure is added, he ups his running game. And I can see how my training changes once I've signed up for a show as well. That's applying intentional pressure. Where the wheels fall off the wagon for me is when I start to feel the pressure of the competition because I doubt my ability to create the outcome that I want. That, my friend, is an example of unintentional pressure, which is like putting too much air in your tires, or useless pressure, like putting silly putty in your tires and expecting a good performance. The key is to apply intentional pressure, growth pressure, next level pressure. And as you evolve as humans and become more of your highest and best self, improving your relationship with pressure and your capacity to deal with it is what will mature you and increase your capacity to experience more. When we spend our time and energy trying to make pressure go away, we will miss out on the human we could become and what we could experience because we are constantly trying to change our circumstance in an effort to relieve the pressure versus allowing it, embracing it, and letting it be part of the experience, but not letting it create the experience. When I look back at our show a couple of weeks ago, just like your brain, my brain went to trying to solve for the pressure. Get those people to sit down. Tell them they can't sit there. I wanted to get rid of the pressure. I was actually very mad at the people who were in the stands and being so distracting. Looking back now, I could have used that energy so differently. Now I'm glad that I had the experience. And because I did experience that kind of pressure, I now have confidence in Dutch and his ability to handle a different layer of pressure. Without it, I would not know what he was so capable of. But what if I could have gone into that experience with a better understanding of pressure and my ability to handle it, Dutch's ability to handle it? I would have saved myself from getting so angry about it. And that's why I thought this episode was so important to share with you so that you can start creating a better relationship with pressure. We are all looking for the boss to relieve the pressure, the spouse to relieve the pressure, the friend, the coworker to relieve the pressure, when really what would be more truly productive and we would create a bigger advantage is if we changed our relationship with pressure and learned to apply pressure intentionally. Intentionally allow pressure to exist without trying to buffer against it. This week, be very conscious of things in your home, in your daily life, that without pressure would create a disaster for you. Really focus this week in thinking about pressure in a different way and notice your ability to handle pressure. And also notice the workaround that you create in order to avoid the feeling of pressure. I know this is one area that I'm going to be giving a lot more focus to, and I've noticed a huge gap in my tolerance for pressure. All right, I hope this has been helpful and useful to you and gives you a little something to think about this week that will help you start living your best year ever. That is what I have for you this week, and now go have the best day ever. That's a wrap. I hope that you were able to experience a mind shift of your own today. Listen, if you love this podcast, you should totally check out my Life by Design 6-week boot camp. It's a work at your own pace workshop and something that you can do over and over and over again to uplevel your results and get ready for a transformation at the speed of life.